The air on Aetheris was heavy with smoke, acrid and metallic, the kind of stench that lingered in the throat long after one stopped breathing it. What had once been a lush royal plain was now a wasteland, burned forests, shattered marble spires, and twisted wreckage from ships that had fallen from orbit like dying birds. The battlefield was silent now, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of aftermath, of death hanging thick over the ground. Among the countless bodies that littered the field, one stood out not because of her grandeur, but because of her fragility. Princess Serenia of the Aetheri Dominion, heir to a throne that spanned 5 star systems, lay sprawled against the broken stone of a collapsed archway. Her ceremonial armor, once gleaming with jewels and etched with ancestral runes, was cracked and blackened from the blast that had struck her. Blood silver and faintly luminous traced patterns down her collar and pooled beneath her. Her breaths were shallow, uneven. Each rise of her chest seemed weaker than the last, as if her body itself had already chosen to surrender. Her guards had fallen around her, their weapons shattered, their forms grotesquely twisted. The few surviving nobles of her court stood a distance away, horrified, whispering among themselves. They dared not approach her. For them, she was already beyond saving. It was not her people who moved to her side, but an outsider, Captain Elias. Vey of the Terran Expeditionary Corps staggered across the wreckage, his human frame weary from days of combat. His armor was dented and scorched, his rifle discarded after it had run dry. Each step was a defiance of exhaustion, his will alone pushing him forward. He had fought through the worst this war could offer, but none of that mattered now. What mattered was the sight before him, an enemy princess, young, regal, even in her brokenness, and dying alone. Elias's instinct screamed that he should leave her. She was, after all, the face of the enemy, a leader whose decisions had fueled the fires of war. His commanders would never forgive him for sparing her, let alone touching her. But another instinct, one deeper and more human, overrode all that. The instinct to protect life, even fragile, alien life. The instinct to refuse indifference in the face of death. He dropped to one knee beside her, his gauntlets clattering against stone. His shadow fell across her pale, glowing face. She stirred at his presence, eyelids fluttering weakly, open. When her gaze found him, her lips parted, and she exhaled words almost too faint to hear. "Leave me," she whispered. Her voice was like a fading flame, each syllable a struggle. "A human should not touch me." Her words carried more than disdain, they carried fear. For Aetheri bloodlines were sacred, their bodies delicate in ways that humans barely understood. To be touched by an outsider, especially by a human whose kind was seen as brutish and crude, was a violation of every law her people held. But Elias ignored all that. He brushed strands of ash-streaked hair from her face, his hand trembling. "I'm not leaving you," he said firmly, the words more vow than promise. "Not like this." Behind him, Serenia's family and attendants gasped. One of the elder nobles hissed, "He cannot touch her. It is forbidden." Other clutched their chest in horror, as though Elias's very presence was a desecration. Yet none moved to stop him, whether out of fear, shock, or a grim acknowledgement of their own helplessness. They simply watched. Gently, Elias lifted the princess into his arms. Her body felt light, almost weightless, as though she was already halfway gone. He pressed his palm against her side where the wound burned brightest. Her body arched suddenly, convulsing as if struck by lightning. Her eyes snapped wide, glowing brighter for a fleeting moment. And then, impossibly, her heartbeat strengthened. The nobles staggered back in disbelief. "What sorcery is this?" One cried. Serenia gasped sharply, her chest rising more fully than before. Her fingers twitched against Elias's armor, clutching weakly as though reaching for something beyond instinct. She shivered, not from death's cold touch, but from something else, something awakening within her. Elias didn't understand it either. All he knew was that his touch had sparked something inside her, something her own kind could not. He tightened his hold, refusing to let go. Her family stared, eyes wide, their voices trembling with both awe and terror. The human's touch, it restores her. And in that shattered battlefield silence, Elias realized he had crossed a line he could never step back from. He wasn't just holding the alien princess as she died, he was holding the key to a miracle neither species could yet explain. Serenia should have been gone. Every Aetheri healer knew the venom of the Kirin blades, the toxin that had pierced her chest, was designed not only to kill, but to unravel. It dissolved the vital pathways in Aetheri bodies, stripping them of energy, erasing them molecule by molecule. No cure existed. Even their most advanced medtech only slowed the inevitable. Once it entered the blood, there was no coming back. And yet, in Elias's arms, the impossible was happening. Her veins, which moments ago had dimmed with a dull gray of encroaching death, pulsed faintly with silver light again. The glow that marked Aetheri life for something humans could barely comprehend was returning. Not steadily, not completely, but undeniably. Serenia's lips parted. A ragged breath pulled into her lungs, sharp and alive. Her voice came broken, yet louder than before. "What is this?" Elias blinked, as bewildered as the nobles watching from behind. His heart hammered. He had pressed his palm against her wound to try to stop the bleeding, but instead he felt something far stranger a current, like static electricity, running from him into her. Every heartbeat he gave steadied hers. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice raw. He swallowed hard, forcing his trembling hands to remain steady. "But it's working." Her family could only stare. The oldest noble, draped in ceremonial robes, singed by fire, stepped forward, but stopped short of entering the circle of ash where Elias knelt. His voice shook. "This should not be possible. A human has no connection to the lifeblood." Another spat bitterly. "It is contamination. He poisons her with his touch." But the evidence denied them. Serena's chest rose more evenly now, her color returning faintly. Where there had been the stillness of a fading body, there was now trembling motion, the kind that spoke of a heart refusing to give up. Her hand twitched. Fingers slender and cold grazed against Elias's scorched chest plate. For an instant, she seemed to grip him not in weakness, but in need. Her glowing eyes found his, no longer just glazed with pain. They now carried awareness, sharp and piercing. "You're human," she whispered, her voice almost accusing, as if that word alone should have made what she felt impossible. "And you're alive?" Elias shot back. The words left his lips before he even thought about them. It wasn't meant to be clever. It was the truth he clung to. Serenia's family gasped as her body gave another shudder. Her glow brightened, though faintly, like a candle fighting against the wind. She inhaled again, stronger this time, and a faint tremor ran through her frame. Not the death shiver of a body shutting down, but the surge of something returning. Her body's reaction was undeniable. His touch revived her. The nobles whispered urgently, their voices full of fear and awe. "It cannot be. It must not. And yet it is. The prophecy, the interwoven sparks. It is being fulfilled." Elias ignored them. His focus was only on her. He could feel the fragility of her life in every faint breath, every twitch beneath his hands. He could also feel her strength growing in tiny surges, each one more certain than the last. Her eyes softened for a moment, the fear in them tempered by a flicker of something else, recognition, or maybe reluctant trust. "Why?" she asked him, confusion lacing her tone. "Why save me? I am not your ally. I am not your kin." Elias clenched his jaw. There was no time to explain the unshakable stubbornness of humanity. the instinct that drove them to protect even strangers, even enemies, if it meant defying death itself. So he gave her the only answer that mattered. Because you're here, because you're alive, that's enough. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, her body shivered violently once more, and the glow of her veins pulsed brighter, flowing from her chest outward like veins of molten silver beneath her skin. The E3 nobles recoiled, stunned. One dropped to their knees. The prophecy is true. A spark not of our blood, but of another bound to her. Elias didn't understand their words. He didn't care. All that mattered was that the alien princess, who moments ago had been slipping into death, was clinging harder to life with every second he held her. She clutched his hand now, not weakly, but with purpose. And her voice, though faint, carried a new edge. Do not let go. Elias tightened his grip, his eyes hard, his resolve unshakable. I wasn't planning to. And in that moment, beneath the broken skies of Aetheris, both human and alien understood something that neither science nor prophecy had ever prepared them. For death had come for the princess. But a human's touch had made her shiver and given her back to life. The sanctuary deep within the ruins of Aetheris should have been a place of mourning. Its marble halls, once vibrant with sacred light, were cracked and smoke-stained. The air hummed faintly with the residual energy of shattered wards, their protection broken during the invasion. Survivors had gathered Hyralian nobles, attendants, a handful of healers. They whispered in low, fearful tones, preparing themselves to bid farewell to their princess. But instead of grief, they watched a miracle unfold. Princess Saranya lay on a makeshift bed of silk. Her armor removed, her wound bound in glowing wraps of Aetheri medtech. Around her, healers had assembled their most sophisticated instruments, humming orbs of crystal, fluid-filled chambers designed to filter toxins, resonant rods meant to stimulate lifeblood. And yet, for all their efforts, none of their tools kept her alive. Her vitals faltered whenever they tried to treat her without the human. Every time Elias placed his hand against her skin, her pulse surged. Every time he withdrew, she waned. It became so undeniable that the healers themselves stepped back, exchanging nervous glances. They did not understand it. They did not want to. But reality was before them, and it was inescapable. Saranya's eyes fluttered open, the glow in them stronger than before. She studied Elias, the human soldier, kneeling at her side. His armor was battered, his face streaked with ash and blood, his hands calloused and trembling with exhaustion. Yet those same hands carried her life. Her voice came sharp, though still weakened. Why you? Her words cut the silence, full of confusion and suspicion. Why would a human brood of war heal me when even my own blood cannot? Elias exhaled slowly, shaking his head. I don't know. Maybe it's something in me. Maybe it's something in humans. But it's real. I can feel it. Her gaze narrowed, but there was no denying the truth. She could feel it too, like warmth radiating through her veins wherever his skin touched hers. It wasn't merely healing. It was ignition. His presence lit something within her that her kind had believed. It's untouchable, once broken. A faint tremor ran through her as she reached upward. Her hand unsteady and brushed her fingers against Elias's cheek. He almost flinched at the alien intimacy, but forced himself still. The moment her skin met his, her entire body jolted. The glow in her veins brightened, spilling out across her body in a visible surge of silver light. The chamber lit as if with moonlight, startling the gathered nobles. Some staggered back, shielding their eyes. Others dropped to their knees in reverence or fear. Saranya gasped, her chest heaving with a new, stronger rhythm. It's not just healing. Her voice was steadier now, almost fierce. Your touch doesn't just keep me alive. It awakens me. Her words struck the room like a thunderclap. The counselors whispered furiously, their voices trembling with both outrage and awe. "Blasphemy," hissed one. "It is unnatural," another spat. But an elder voice, low with ancient dread, said, "The interwoven sparks. It is as the old verses warned. A bond outside our bloodline, a convergence of life, not of Aetheris." Elias stared between them, bewildered. "I'm not your prophecy," he said, his tone firm. "I'm just a soldier who refused to let her die." But Saranya looked at him differently now. No longer with just suspicion or gratitude, something else stirred in her eyes. Her people had always told her life and death were matters of blood and heritage. Yet here, against every law and belief, a human had done what none of her kind could. She sat up slightly, strength returning to her limbs, and the healers gasped. Only hours ago she could barely breathe, yet now she straightened with regal poise. "Perhaps you are not prophecy," she said softly, her gaze never leaving his, "but perhaps you are fate." The words chilled the room. To the Aetheri, fate was not spoken lightly. It was the unseen hand that shaped empires, toppled dynasties, and wove together unlikely threads of survival. If Serena invoked fate, it was no passing thought. Elias shifted uneasily under her gaze. He wasn't a man who believed in destiny. He believed in choices, in actions taken when the moment demanded them. And yet, sitting there beneath her piercing stare, he could not deny the pull that seemed to tether them. The nobles broke into argument, their voices rising in panic. "We cannot allow this bond to stand. It changes everything, her rule. Our bloodlines, our future." One cried. Another, trembling, murmured, "Or perhaps it saves us." Serena silenced them all with a single gesture of her hand, her strength undeniable now. Her voice carried across the sanctuary, steady and commanding. "I am alive because of him. Whatever this bond is, it cannot be denied. My fate has been altered, and so has yours." Elias remained silent, his jaw tight, his hands still firmly clasping hers. He didn't know where this path would lead. All he knew was that somehow, impossibly, a human and an alien, Princess had become something more than strangers on a battlefield. The news spread faster than fire in dry grass. Across the Dominion's surviving networks, whispers turned to rumors. And rumors into declarations. The princess lives because of a human. For the Aetheri, a species that measured worth by bloodline purity and the sacred resonance of their life glow, this was an earthquake of belief. The throne's heir, a woman born of generations of divine ancestry, had not been saved by their greatest healers or guarded by their most loyal warriors. She had been revived by the touch of a Terran soldier, a human dot in the great council chambers. Marble pillars cracked by the war loomed over the gathering of nobles. They hissed their outrage like cornered serpents, voices echoing off the vaulted ceiling. "It is a contamination," one thundered. "Her glow is no longer her own, it is mingled with alien filth." Another raised a trembling clawed hand. "If word spreads unchecked, our people will lose faith in the purity of the crown. They will question our bloodlines, our very right to rule." Yet a smaller, quieter faction dared to whisper a different truth. And what of the prophecy of the interwoven sparks? What if this bond is not corruption, but salvation? Did we not see it with our own eyes? The arguments tore through the chamber until the doors opened and all voices faltered. Serenia entered, not carried as an invalid, but walking. Her steps were careful, her body still fragile, yet the glow coursing through her veins was undeniable. Her people had seen her fading into death hours before, and now she stood renewed at her side. Elias walked silently. His presence was a spark in dry tinder every noble eye darted to him with fury, suspicion, or fear. His armor was still scarred, his face still marked with battle grime. but he carried himself with the unshakable resolve of someone who had already proven impossible. The chamber erupted again. "Remove him," one shouted. "He cannot stand beside her." Serenia's voice cut through like a blade. "Enough." Her tone, though quiet, silenced the room. She looked across the gathered nobles, her eyes sharp, her glow steady. "You call him contamination. You call him filth. Tell me then, where were you when I lay dying? Where were your cures, your sciences, your sacred bloodlines?" None answered. Serenia lifted her chin, regal despite her weariness. "Without him, I would already be dust on that battlefield. Without him, the Dominion would mourn a princess and crumble in despair. If my life has been tied to his touch, then it is not shame. It is proof that fate has chosen differently for us than we imagined." Her words left the chamber shaken. Some bowed their heads in reluctant acknowledgment. Others glared daggers at Elias, their pride stinging with humiliation. That night, Elias learned how fragile their bond truly was. In the dark corridors of the sanctuary palace, shadows moved. Assassins, cloaked in refractive light, slipped through the defenses that had grown weak after the war. They did not strike at Serenia directly, they aimed for him to them. The human was the infection that threatened their empire. Remove him, and the bond would fail. Remove him, and their world would return to the order they understood. But they underestimated both human instincts and the bond that had already formed. The first assassin struck silently, blade flashing toward Elias's back. He turned just in time, his training kicking in. With a roar, he slammed the attacker into the wall, his bare hands tightening around the alien's wrist until the weapon clattered to the floor. Another rushed him. But Serenia cried out, her glow flaring as if reacting to the danger. That flare was all Elias needed, a flash of light revealing movement. He ducked, grabbed a shard of broken marble, and drove it upward. The alien fell, stunned by the time reinforcements arrived. Elias stood bloodied but unbroken. Serenia clutched behind him. The assassins lay defeated. The nobles who came running were horrified not because of the attack, but because of what it revealed. The princess's glow had pulsed brightest not when surrounded by her own kind, but when bound to the human's presence in battle, later. When they were alone, Serenia spoke softly, her voice stripped of regal formality. "They will not stop. They fear you, Elias, not because you are human, but because you are necessary." He met her gaze, steady and unyielding. "Let them fear me. I didn't come here for them. I came because I wasn't going to let you die." Her expression softened, and for a fleeting moment, she looked less like a princess and more like a woman grappling with a truth too vast to deny. "Every heartbeat I feel now carries your echo. You are not just my healer. You are part of me." And though Elias said nothing, the silence between them spoke volumes. He wasn't a man of destiny. He wasn't chosen. But the bond was real and tog. The healing chamber was silent except for the soft hum of its restorative field. In the center lay Princess Seraphil, her luminous skin no longer pale but glowing faintly with life. Her family, the royal court, healers, guards stood in reverent stillness. And at her side, seated as though unwilling to move even an inch away, was the human Ethan. Hours earlier, everyone had believed her life was at its end. Her wounds were mortal, her body unresponsive. Even the most advanced alien medical technology had failed. Then Ethan, driven by nothing more than stubborn devotion and desperate instinct, had cradled her and refused to let go. His touch, impossible by all known science, had drawn her back. The royal family struggled to comprehend it. They had witnessed miracles in their long reign, but never one like this. A humanist species considered young, fragile, unremarkable, had done what their finest healers could not. His embrace had become a lifeline, when Seraphel stirred at last. Her eyelids fluttering open like the wings of a fragile bird, the chamber seemed to hold its breath. Ethan leaned closer, his hands still wrapped protectively around hers. "You're safe," he whispered, as though afraid speaking too loudly might shatter her fragile return. Her voice was soft, weak, yet filled with a resonance that stunned all present. "I felt the abyss," she said. "And then? Warmth. Your warmth, Ethan. It pulled me back." Her words were more than a declaration, they were testimony. She had not been healed by the machines, nor by the healers. She had been pulled from death by the human's will. The alien monarch, her father, who had stood silently until now, finally approached. His towering figure cast a long shadow, his eyes glimmering with both suspicion and awe. For him, trust did not come easily, especially toward outsiders. "You," he said, his deep voice trembling just slightly. "What have you done to my daughter?" Ethan met the monarch's gaze, steady and unflinching. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "All I knew was I couldn't let her go. So I held on. And somehow, she held on too." The monarch studied him for a long time. In his people's culture, truth was not only heard but felt, and what he felt from the human was no deception. Still, the implications unsettled him. If a human's touch could defy death itself, what else were they capable of? The royal court whispered among themselves. Some feared him, others revered him. The healers, once skeptical, now looked at him with near worship. For they had witnessed an impossibility, but Seraphil silenced them all. When she lifted her fragile hand and placed it against Ethan's cheek, "He saved me," she said firmly, "not as a healer, not as a warrior, but as himself. His spirit answered mine." The chamber grew silent. In their culture, bonds of spirit were sacred, rare, unexplainable, often forming only once in a lifetime. For a princess to claim such a bond with a human was unprecedented. Ethan, for his part, didn't fully understand the depth of what she implied. All he knew was that when she had slipped away in his arms, something inside him had refused to let death take her. He had fought with everything memory, love, defiance, and poured it into his embrace. If that made him different, so be it. As days passed, Seraphil regained her strength, and with it came changes not only within her, but across her people. The humans were no longer seen as fragile newcomers. Whispers spread through the empire of a human who had cradled their princess at the edge of death and pulled her back with nothing but will. Some called it a miracle, others a warning. For Ethan and Seraphil, it was simpler than that. She had been slipping into the void, and he had refused to let go. In that refusal, a bridge had been built between two lives. Two species, two destinies. One night, as stars burned brightly across the alien sky, she stood beside him on a balcony overlooking her kingdom. Her strength had returned, her eyes shining with new clarity. "You changed everything," she told him. Ethan shook his head. "No, you did. You fought to come back." She smiled faintly, stepping closer until their shoulders brushed. "I came back because you gave me something to fight for." For a long moment, they stood in silence, gazing out into the endless stars. Neither needed to say more. Her survival was no accident. Their bond was no coincidence. In the eyes of her people, a new legend had been born. In the eyes of the galaxy, humanity had taken another step out of obscurity. And in their own eyes, they had found something rare, something stronger than fear, stronger than death. Together, they would face whatever came next, and so it was remembered. The day the alien princess faded into death, and the human who cradled her pulled her back not with power, not with technology, but with the one thing the galaxy had underestimated, a human heart.